Good morning. Today we are discussing about impact of Renaissance. Impact of Renaissance in the field of art, science and literature. You have to learn only two topics in this lesson: causes of Renaissance and impact of Renaissance. Causes we have discussed already. Now impacts. The Renaissance produced far-reaching results in the field of art, science, literature, philosophy, religion, etc. First we discuss about the impact of Renaissance in the field of art. Art, especially painting and sculpture. First, painting. Impact of Renaissance in the field of painting. Renaissance produced far-reaching changes in the field of painting. During the medieval period, during the medieval period, painting and sculpture were used for propagating and spreading religion. And we know that the medieval period, European society was dominated by Catholic Church. So the Catholic Church gave instructions to the artist what to do. Because painting, sculpture and the different art forms were used for spreading religion. That is why most of the themes for painting and sculpture were religion. The painters were asked to paint on the subjects based on religion. And secular paintings and sculpture were not there, because the artist had no freedom to choose the themes for their paintings and even the colors. Even the colors were also decided by the church only. So painters had very less freedom, but this situation changed because of Renaissance. During Renaissance period, we can see a shift from religious paintings to secular paintings. The painters used the themes like human being for secular themes. They have chosen for their paintings and the artworks. So thus a shift from religious paintings to secular paintings, that is one of the main impact in the field of paintings. Some other features of painting also we shall discuss in this lesson. Some other features of Renaissance paintings were: the painters used new methods like frescoes, oil colors and woodcuts. New methods like frescoes, oil colors and woodcuts were used by the Renaissance painters as another feature of the Renaissance painting. Again, another feature of the Renaissance painting was the Renaissance painters used humanistic and secular approach in their paintings. Renaissance painters used humanistic and secular approach. The Renaissance paintings were highly artistic, and the paintings were lifelike. The Renaissance artist painted lifelike paintings. One of the most important features of the Renaissance paintings was They were highly artistic and lifelike paintings. The Renaissance paintings were highly artistic and lifelike paintings. Lifelike paintings means the paintings were looking as if alive. Alive means living human beings. When they mostly the Renaissance painters used the themes based on human being, and when they painted the human being, these pictures were looking as if a living human being, a living man. So one of the main features of the Renaissance paintings were the Renaissance paintings are lifelike paintings. They were highly artistic. Okay, so once again, some of the main features of Renaissance paintings. They were they were secular in nature. The Renaissance painters used a humanistic and secular approach. They were highly artistic and they were lifelike paintings. The Renaissance painters used new methods like frescoes, oil colors, and woodcuts. Okay, now now we learn about some of the main painters. Leonardo da Vinci was one of the outstanding painter during the Renaissance period. Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, and Rafael were three main painters during the Renaissance period. Leonardo da Vinci was an Italian painter. We can say he was a polymath. Leonardo da Vinci was an Italian polymath. A polymath means a person having vast knowledge in different subjects is called a polymath. A person with wide knowledge and wisdom. So Leonardo da Vinci was a painter, a sculptor, a musician, a scientist. So he was an expert in various subjects, a versatile genius. He was a renowned, well-known painter, one of the most famous painters in the world, Leonardo da Vinci. Then he was a sculptor also. He was a musician. He was a scientist. And some of his masterpiece works or paintings were Mona Lisa. Mona Lisa is a world famous painting. Mona Lisa, The Last Supper, one more is there, that is the Virgin of the Rocks. Mona Lisa, The Last Supper, the Virgin of Rocks are some of the masterpieces of Leonardo da Vinci. Then the next one is Michelangelo. Michelangelo was also another Italian, a painter, a sculptor. He was a poet. He was also just as Leonardo da Vinci. He was also a versatile genius. He was an architect also. Okay. Michelangelo was an architect also. He was an Italian painter, a sculptor, then an architect and a poet. One of his famous painting is the paintings in the Sistine Chapel of Vatican. In the Sistine Chapel of Vatican, Michelangelo has done some paintings, and this painting is one of the best examples of Michelangelo's paintings. Sistine Chapel means there is the name of a chapel. A chapel is a small house of worship of the Christians. So in the Sistine Chapel of Vatican, he had done a very beautiful painting, and this painting is one of the most important paintings of Michelangelo. Besides this, the Last Judgment and the Fall of Man. The Last Judgment, there is another painting. The Fall of Man, there is also another painting. So these three are the popular paintings of Michelangelo. The next one is Rafael. Rafael is also a Renaissance painter. He was a painter of the Florentine school or Florentine School of Art. Florentine School means a natural form of painting developed by the artist in Florence. That is called the Florentine School or Florentine School of Art. So Rafael was also a Renaissance painter, a well-known Renaissance painter, and his famous painting was Sistine Madonna. Sistine Madonna is the famous painting of Rafael. Now we will discuss or we will see some of the main sculptors. In the field of sculpture also, a lot of contributions were made during the Renaissance period or done during the Renaissance period. Some of the famous sculptors. What is sculpture? Sculpture is the art of making images. The art of making images is called a sculpture, and one who makes an image is called a sculptor. So some of the famous Renaissance sculptors were Lorenzo Ghiberti, Donatello, and Michelangelo. These three were the most famous Renaissance sculptors: Lorenzo Ghiberti, Donatello, and Michelangelo. And Pieta is one of the world famous sculpture of Renaissance period. The Pieta. Michelangelo made a famous sculpture, a statue of Mother Mary carrying Jesus' body on her lap. Mother Mary carrying Jesus Christ's body on her lap. This image is known as the Pieta, and the Pieta is one of the world famous Renaissance sculpture. It was made by Michelangelo. Okay, that's all about the sculpture. Now we learn about literature. Literature, there was great progress in the field of literature also. Renaissance made much changes, or a lot of developments were took place during Renaissance period in the field of literature. One of the greatest impact of Renaissance literature was the use of local languages. Local languages were flourished due to the Renaissance. During medieval period, the most famous language or the language used commonly was Latin. Latin was the language used by the Europeans most commonly during medieval period or the Middle Ages. But during the Renaissance period, people started the use of local language or regional languages. As a result, the importance of Latin language decreased and the regional languages flourished. So one of the greatest one of the greatest impact of Renaissance literature was the use of or the flourishing of the local languages. Then another important feature of the Renaissance in the field of literature was the writers used secular themes instead of religious themes. Medieval period, the Catholic Church dominated the society, and that's why the Catholic Church did not allow the writers to write on secular themes. The writers had to write on religious themes. But during Renaissance, this attitude changed, and writers started to write on secular themes. Then their main theme was human beings and their problem. They started to write on human beings and their problems or the matters related with the human beings. Thus, there was a development of humanism. A movement known as humanism developed, and the study of humanities got much popularity during the Renaissance period because the Renaissance artists and the writers, they paid much attention to humanism and the problems of human being. That's why the studies of humanities also got much importance during the Renaissance period. We will learn some of the some contributions of Renaissance in the field of literature in Italy and in England. Contributions of Renaissance in literature in Italy and in England. First we learn about literature in Italy. Some of the famous writers and their works we will see here. Machiavelli was a famous political writer of Italy, a Renaissance writer in Italy. Machiavelli was a famous political writer from Italy during the Renaissance period, and he wrote a famous book, The Prince. So Machiavelli wrote a famous book named The Prince. The next, Dante. Dante wrote Divine Comedy. It is an epic poem. Dante wrote an epic poem named Divine Comedy. The next, Boccaccio wrote a book named Decameron. Boccaccio, another Italian writer, wrote a book named Decameron. It is a collection of 100 short stories. Then some other Italian writers were Petrarch, Aristo, Tasso, were some other famous Italian writers. Petrarch was a great Italian scholar and writer, and he is popularly known as father of humanism. Petrarch was a great scholar and writer, and he is popularly known as the father of humanism. That's all about literature in Italy. Now literature in England. You might have heard of the name William Shakespeare. William Shakespeare is considered as the greatest writer of England, and he is popularly known as England's national poet. William Shakespeare is known as England's national poet, and he is also known as the Bard of the Heavens. Bard of Heaven. England's national poet and Bard of Heaven. He is a world famous playwright and a poet. Playwright means one who writes plays or dramas. One who writes dramas is called a playwright. So he was one of the greatest playwright and poet. He wrote a number of books. Some of the books are mentioned here. Some of the historical dramas written by William Shakespeare are Richard II, Henry VI, Henry V. These are some of the political dramas of William Shakespeare. Richard II, Henry VI, and Henry V. Some of the comedies of William Shakespeare are. Comedy means the drama or a novel or any writing which is having a happy ending. It's called comedy. Whereas tragedies are also there, the writings which is having a sad ending, that is called a tragedy. An incident happens, a sad incident, that also can be called a tragedy. So William Shakespeare wrote both comedies and tragedies. Some of the comedies written by William Shakespeare are A Midsummer Night's Dream, Much Ado About Nothing, As You Like It, Twelfth Night. These are some of the comedies of William Shakespeare. Whereas some of the tragedies of Shakespeare are Hamlet, King Lear, Othello, Macbeth, etc. are tragedies, examples of tragedies of William Shakespeare. So, William Shakespeare has written a number of dramas and poems, and some of the famous books, some of the famous dramas are Richard II, Henry VI, Henry V, A Midsummer Night's Dream, Much Ado About Nothing, As You Like It, Twelfth Night, Hamlet, King Lear, Othello, Macbeth, etc. So that's all about Renaissance literature. Now Renaissance in the field of science, impact of Renaissance in the field of science. Here we have to learn mainly about Nicholas Copernicus. Nicholas Copernicus was a Polish scientist. He was a mathematician and a scientist. Copernicus introduced a new theory, and this theory is known as the heliocentric theory. Nicholas Copernicus introduced a new theory known as the heliocentric theory, and according to the heliocentric theory, he explained some new principles or facts to the world. As per the heliocentric theory, Copernicus said, Earth is not the center of universe. Earlier it was believed, in the Middle Ages, it was believed that Earth is the center of universe. But Copernicus studied the universe, studied the heavenly objects, and he came into a conclusion that Sun is the center of the universe. So heliocentric, that means Sun as the center. That is the meaning of heliocentric. So according to the heliocentric theory, Copernicus said Sun is the center of universe and Earth is not the center of universe. Earth is just a planet or a celestial body in the solar system. Sun is almost the center of universe. Earth and the other planets are revolving around the Sun. And it was said that Earth and the other planets are revolving around the Sun, and the Earth has more than one motions, more than one movement. That is, it rotates in its own axis, and at the same time it revolves around the Sun. So Earth has more than one action. It has rotation as well as revolution, and the other planets are also rotating around the Sun. But Copernicus could not prove his principle, his theory, because he had no evidence, he had nothing to prove it. And later this theory was proved by Galileo Galilei, an Italian scientist. Galileo Galilei proved the principle, the heliocentric theory of Copernicus. Galileo Galilei discovered a new device named telescope, and with the help of telescope he studied, or he observed the heavenly objects, and he proved, with the help of his telescope, he proved that Sun is the center of universe and Earth and the other planets are revolving around the Sun. So the theory propounded by Copernicus was later proved by Galileo with the help of his telescope. Then again, a German scientist, John Kepler, proved that Earth and other planets move around the Sun, and not in a circle but in elliptical orbits. Isaac Newton discovered law of gravitation. Some of the developments took place in the field of science. Isaac Newton discovered the law of gravitation. Okay, an apple fallen down on his head. Okay, he thought, why the apple is not moving upwards, it is falling downwards. Okay, thus he discovered the theory of gravitation. John Kepler said that Earth and the other planets are moving around the sun not in a circular orbit but an elliptical orbit. Elliptical orbit means a long circle, not a exact circle, the shape of egg, that is elliptical. So Earth and the other planets rotate the sun in an elliptical orbit and not in a circular orbit. Some other discoveries were made during this period. William Harvey, an English physician, discovered circulation of blood. Circulation of blood was also discovered during this time by William Harvey. Then, in the field of mathematics also, some discoveries were made, some developments were made. Arabs gave algebra and numerals to the West. Stevin advocated decimal system of coins, weights and measures. Modern geometry was made systematic by Desargues. So some of the changes or some of the developments in the field of mathematics. Arabs gave algebra and numerals to the West. The knowledge of algebra and the numerical system got to the Western world from the Arabs. Arabs were having much trade relations with the other people. So Arabs got this information on algebra and numerals from the Eastern countries, and they spread it to the Western world. So in the field of science, mathematics also, there was progress during the time of Renaissance. Okay, that's all about the contribution of Renaissance in the field of art, literature and science. One more topic is mentioned there, that is consequence of Renaissance. Consequence of Renaissance you need not learn. Only two topics you learn, that is causes of the Renaissance and impacts of Renaissance. Impact in the field of art, literature, science. In the field of science, you mainly learn about Copernicus. Then discovery of William Harvey is the circulation of blood. Okay. Then discovery of Galileo Galilei is telescope. Okay. Then John Kepler, he proved that, or he said that Earth and the other planets are revolving around the sun in an elliptical orbit, not in a circular orbit. Then Isaac Newton discovered that the law of gravitation. These all things you learn. So this lesson is over. Renaissance lesson is over. You read this lesson well and you find out the question answers, write in your copy and learn the question answers as well. Okay, thank you.